The cold on their X9 wasn't like anything on Earth. It didn't just sting, it settled into your bones, hollowed you out, and made you feel like your own blood might freeze. Cal Trenner, foreman of terraforming outpost E-17, didn't mind it. He liked the silence, the solitude, the way the wind buried everything beneath miles of snow and made every human outpost feel like a warm miracle. The alert had come through just after second shift, Category 6 ice storm inbound from the western ridge. Cal was already halfway to Relay Station 4 when the news hit. Others scrambled to shelter. Cal kept going. That's just who he was. His hauler rumbled through the growing storm, visibility dropping by the minute. He didn't say much to the onboard AI, didn't curse the weather. He had cables to check and conduit valves that couldn't be allowed to freeze over. Infrastructure came first, always. Then something flickered on the edge of the ice field. A shape. Movement. Too fast to be snowdrift, too slow to be windblown tech. Cal eased the hauler to a stop. The sensors didn't show anything unusual, but he trusted his eyes more than any system. He stepped out into the howling white. The wind hit him like a sledgehammer. Visibility was down to 10 feet. He squinted, scanned the ground. There. Just ahead. A small mound that wasn't there moments ago, twitching against the wind. Then another. They weren't rocks. Weren't equipment. They were alive. He dropped to his knees, fingers brushing matted icy fur. Two creatures, small, maybe half the size of earth dogs, but their features were unmistakably lupin. Their bodies glowed faintly beneath layers of frost, bioluminescent veins dimming with every second. They weren't just freezing, they were dying. He had no idea what species they were. He didn't care. He ripped off his outer parka, wrapped it around the smaller one. Then his emergency thermal sheet for the other. The creatures didn't resist. They couldn't. Their eyes, glowing with eerie intelligence, barely followed his movements. He hauled them into his arms, stumbling back to the hauler, ignoring the warning blares from his suit's temperature regulators. Once inside, he blasted the interior heat and laid the cubs across the floor, wrapping them tighter. The cabin filled with the sharp scent of their wet fur thawing. One of them let out a high-pitched whimper that cut straight through the static hum of the hauler systems. He looked at the coordinates on the NAV screen. Nearest shelter was 27 kilometers back at Outpost E-17. Going forward meant risking death. The terrain was worsening by the minute. But Relay Station 4 could wait. He hit the override, spun the hauler around, and pushed the throttle to max safe speed. The drive back was blind. Ice slicked the control surfaces. The hauler AI warned of drifting too close to ridgeline fractures. Cal ignored it all. He kept glancing at the creatures on the floor. They were huddled together now, one's head resting on the other's neck. Their breathing was shallow but steady. He didn't speak aloud. There was nothing to say. The storm hit full force 10 kilometers out. Visibility dropped to 0. The hauler's main sensor went offline from ice buildup. Cal drove by gut. Every vibration of the wheels, every shift in slope under the treads, all of it was muscle memory. Years on this rock had taught him how to feel the ground's mood. He reached the gates of E-17 just as the last generator pulse guided him in. The bay doors were half frozen, but he muscled them open, cradling the cubs and ducking into the shelter's reinforced corridor. Inside, heat slammed into him. He moved fast. No protocol, no Deccan, just straight to the med bay. He triggered the emergency biobed. The AI protested, requesting species ID, but Cal overrode it with a level 3 distress code. He laid the cubs in the scanner field and stepped back, soaked in sweat and snowmelt, face burning from the cold. The AI scanned. Non-classified biological lifeforms. Unknown physiology. Core temperature critically low. Beginning thermal restoration. Cal dropped onto a bench and watched. Monitors blinked red, then amber. Slowly, a faint line of green crept up the life signs. One of the cubs twitched. The other gave a small exhale that sounded disturbingly close to a sigh. Cal stared for a long moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a protein bar. Snapped it in half. left one piece near the bed. No idea if they'd eat it, but it felt like something he should do. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and let the warmth settle in. The wind howled outside. In here, the cubs were alive. That was enough. The storm didn't let up for hours. Winds tore across the outpost, rattling every support beam like nature itself wanted in. Cal stayed in the med bay, boots off, wrapped in a thermal blanket, eyes fixed on the monitors. The cubs were stabilizing. The medical AI adjusted to their alien physiology without complaint, its systems working overtime to mimic a species it couldn't identify. Heart rates rose steadily. Core temperature normalized. By morning, they were breathing easy. They hadn't moved much. But they were alert now. Watching him. Cal crouched beside the bed. The larger one blinked slowly, its luminous eyes tracking his every movement. The smaller one lifted its head and gave a soft grunt. Still weak, but curious. He spoke without thinking. "Yeah, I see you. You're tougher than you look." The smaller one shifted closer to its sibling, resting its head across the other's flank. Their bioluminescence pulsed in slow rhythm, soft blue lines tracing over their bodies like breathing light. Cal watched, mesmerized. There was an intelligence behind those eyes. Not just instinct, awareness. He ran a quick scan with his portable analyzer. The results were incomplete but remarkable: high thermal resistance, advanced neuroresponses, protein structures far denser than any fauna on Nyrex-9. Not just surviving, adapting. He started talking more. Not for them, really, just to fill the silence. Told them about the storm outside, about how terraforming had delayed for weeks because of mineral instability in the bedrock. About the time a seismic quake nearly swallowed his crew whole. The cubs listened. He could feel it. They weren't just awake, they were engaging. He broke another protein bar in half, left it near the edge of the bed. The smaller one sniffed at it, then nudged it toward the other. The larger cub extended a thin, pale tongue, licked it once, then slowly chewed. Primitive, maybe, but efficient. He gave them names. Ghost, for the big one, always silent, always watching. Shadow, for the smaller, restless, quick to react. Seemed to fit. Late in the night, after the storm's noise dulled to background groans, something strange happened. The cubs began to hum. Not loudly, barely above the drone of the med equipment. A two-tone resonance, almost harmonic. It didn't sound natural. More like patterned sound. Like a language. He recorded it, ran it through the outpost sound filters. The AI flagged the tones as non-random. A coded structure. Short sequences, deliberate intervals. One of the harmonics matched frequencies in deep space beacon pulses used by long-range relay buoys. But not human ones. The cubs kept humming until the lights flickered. Just once. Then silence. Cal stood up, uneasy. He checked the systems, nothing out of the ordinary. Backup power was stable. The storm was breaking up. But the timing felt deliberate. The next morning, he fed them again. This time, both took the food without hesitation. Their strength was returning quickly, too quickly. Shadow hopped off the bed for a moment, limbs shaky but functional, and sniffed at Cal's jacket on the chair. Ghost stayed close but watched every move. They weren't behaving like animals. They acted like wards. As if they understood Cal had done something vital for them. Gratitude wasn't something you expected from alien wildlife. But that's what it felt like. He contacted Central Command and logged a full report. Kept the descriptions clinical, though he left out the humming. No need to trigger alarms over something he couldn't explain. He attached the scan logs, biosigns, a few pictures. Labeled them unclassified biologicals. Then filed a temporary protection directive to keep them from being relocated to research. The AI pinged back, storm cleared. Transports would resume in 12 hours. Cal knew what that meant. Someone would show up to collect them, probably with syringes and scanners. He looked at Ghost and Shadow curled up together on the floor beside the medbay's warm conduit. Peaceful. As if they'd always been here. He felt something twist in his chest. It was stupid. He didn't even know what they were. But he knew this. The moment someone else got involved, these two would become subjects, not lives. He stood up, stretched, then sat back down. No plans. No solutions. Just him and the two creatures who shouldn't have survived, but did, because of him. Outside, the first sunlight in days broke over the frozen ridgeline. Inside, two alien cubs slept without fear, as if they finally understood they were safe. 3 hours after sunrise, the sky cracked. Not from weather, this was different. The sensors picked it up first. Orbital feeds blinked red, proximity warnings screamed across all terminals, and long-range comms went dead without warning. Cal was in the control room when it started. He saw the displays shift from local diagnostics to full-spectrum alerts. The orbital scanner registered 2 blips, then 200. Then 2000. All entering low orbit at once. The command tower froze. Dirx-9 had no enemies. It barely had neighbors. The mining colony had no strategic value, no known artifacts, no history of military activity. Yet 2,000 ships, each massive enough to blot out a sky sector, now hovered above them with untraceable engine signatures. They emitted no threat fields, no energy spikes. Just silence. Then came the signal. Not a message, an override. Every screen across the outpost flashed black, then lit with a single symbol, 2 intertwined blue arcs glowing in rotating pulse. The image hovered for 10 seconds. A synthetic voice followed, not in standard, but in something ancient, resonant, and entirely alien. It repeated a single word through every frequency channel. Kin. Cal stared at the image, and before he could fully process it, one of the ships detached from the formation. Smaller, still enormous. It moved toward the planet's surface at impossible speed, yet touched down without tremor. No weapon ports, no visible propulsion trails. Just precision and scale. Authorities scrambled. Protocols activated. Defense drones launched, then immediately powered down mid-flight. Command staff tried to raise Earth's deep space liaison. Nothing. Complete blackout. The landed ship opened, not with hydraulics but with a ripple of energy. From it emerged beings unlike anything in the known index. Tall, luminescent bodies partially phased in and out of the visible spectrum. Their skin shimmered like polished crystal, their limbs elongated and adorned with what resembled ceremonial armor woven from light. They didn't speak. They simply walked, forming a perimeter, until one stepped forward and activated a sphere that hovered above its palm. It pulsed once. Then the colony's translator AI kicked in, struggling at first, then locking onto a pattern. The alien's voice became audible. "We have come for the kin. Life preserved by your hands." There was confusion among the humans. No one moved. The aliens waited. Cal stepped forward. His ID was already flagged, his report already under review. The medbay scans, the pictures, the transmission logs, they had been seen. He didn't ask permission. He just led the way. The aliens followed in silence. As they reached the medical wing, Ghost and Shadow stood, fully alert. They didn't bark, didn't flinch. Instead, they moved toward the beings as if called by name. The lead alien kneeled before them, placing a hand over each of their heads. The air around them shimmered. A pulse of light radiated from the contact point, and every screen in the room briefly surged with unfamiliar code. The translator translated a single phrase from the alien's voice. "They are the heirs." The cubs sat beside the figure in complete stillness. The alien turned to Cal. "You chose not for gain nor fear. You acted against logic. You altered fate." Cal didn't respond. He didn't know how. The being raised its hand, and a thin arc of energy extended from its wrist. It etched a symbol in the air, an insignia of 2 interlocked stars surrounded by flame, and sent it into Cal's personal ID file. A digital brand. "You are named Life-Bearer. This record shall not be lost." Before anyone could respond, the alien gestured again. From the largest ship in orbit, a cascading field of light rained down across the hemisphere. Terraforming arrays activated instantly. Centuries of planned infrastructure unfolded in minutes. Atmosphere readings surged positive. Soil conversion rates jumped. Life zones expanded at visible rates. It was not a reward. It was recognition. The delegation turned and began to leave. No demands. No deals. Just acknowledgement. The cubs followed them, but at the doorway, both paused. Shadow looked back. Ghost nodded once, deliberate, calm, final. Then they vanished with the rest, and the sky cleared. The ships remained in orbit, but silent. Watching. Not as invaders, not as superiors, but as witnesses to something they hadn't expected from humanity. No one spoke for a long time. Cal stood alone, unreadable, a single man who had made a choice without knowing anyone else would care. By nightfall, Earth received the transmission. A million questions followed. But one message was clear: humanity had been noticed. Not for its power or ambition, but for a decision made in a storm, by a man who simply refused to walk away. The aftermath unraveled fast. Within 24 hours, orbital control reported zero interference. The ships stayed in place, unmoving but not idle. They formed a geosynchronous shell, not blocking satellites but observing, relaying unknown energy signatures across space. Earth Command scrambled every linguistic AI to parse the symbol left in Cal's ID, but it led nowhere. No known alien language matched it, and the composition of the light-based insignia resisted replication. They were dealing with a civilization not just advanced, but wholly outside the known catalog. Cal returned to his normal duties because no one told him otherwise. The outpost remained operational. No more storms. The terraforming process, which had stalled for 6 months, now accelerated beyond projections. Plants that weren't seeded appeared in fertile patches overnight. Wildlife migrated into stabilized zones without being introduced. Environmental readings hit optimal thresholds for human habitation. It was as if the planet had been waiting for a trigger. The others treated Cal differently. No one said it out loud, but respect had curdled into something heavier, uneasy deference. Not fear, exactly, but uncertainty. He was no longer just the foreman. He was the man the aliens spoke to. The one who made the choice. He hadn't asked for attention, and didn't want it. But he couldn't shake the feeling that everything had shifted beneath his feet. Command sent a diplomatic ship. Formal envoy. Suited delegates, data technicians, linguists, behavioral analysts. They tried to make contact with the orbital fleet. No reply. They broadcast structured messages, universal greetings, even musical sequences designed to bridge cultural gaps. The ships remained inert. Unresponsive, but present. Then came the scans. The cubs were no ordinary lifeforms. Their biology had patterns tied to quantum resonance, living nodes capable of interfacing with energy fields and translating them through instinct. The humming Cal had recorded matched low-level control frequencies embedded within the ships. The cubs weren't just offspring, they were living command keys. What no one said directly, but everyone began to understand, was that the aliens hadn't come for a rescue. They had come for retrieval. And the retrieval had been a test. Weeks passed. The terraforming completed itself. Entire valleys greened over. Lakes unfroze. Temperatures stabilized. Cal submitted reports, filed updates, met quotas. He still woke before dawn, still did routine checks. But now everywhere he walked, people stared. Not disrespectfully, just differently. Like he was a fixed point in something too big to measure. Then the planetary relay array received a burst transmission. No coordinates. No return code. Just 3 words, translated automatically and relayed across every major human hub. The life-bearer endures. The message appeared once and then erased itself. Not even a digital ghost remained. Engineers tore through the system, trying to find a trace. Nothing. Pure quantum burst, untraceable, unrepeatable. That changed everything. Earth Command pivoted policy. Terraforming across other systems slowed as teams re-evaluated their protocols. A new department was formed, Xeno Response Initiative, and Cal was given a classification code. Not rank. Not clearance. A code, Alpha Kin 1. It didn't give him power, but it placed him inside a new branch of humanity's future. He was debriefed endlessly. Every detail of the cub's discovery, care, feeding, behavior, and departure was scrutinized. Psychological profiles were drafted, revised, then classified. But nothing yielded more than what already existed. He found them. He saved them. And because of that, the most powerful civilization known had acknowledged the human race. Scientists debated the implications. Had humanity just passed the test for entry into some galactic threshold? Had an ancient treaty been honored by an accidental gesture of empathy? Theories ranged from diplomatic initiation to mythic fulfillment. The truth didn't fit into any box. Cal didn't speculate. He returned to the field each morning, ran systems checks, refueled haulers, and signed off maintenance logs. He didn't ask for reassignment or honors. Every so often, he'd glance up at the sky. The ships still hovered there, 2,000 sentinels in orbit, unmoving, watching. He thought about the last look Ghost gave him, not fear, not sorrow. Recognition. Shadows paused at the threshold, the way it lingered just long enough to burn into memory. Not everything needed language. Not every truth came in data. Life had returned to Direct 9, faster and more complete than anyone imagined possible. But the real change had already happened. Someone out there had seen humanity act not from strength or desperation, but from instinct. Compassion without agenda. And for that, the stars themselves had paused. Months passed, and still the sky remained unchanged. The ships above Direct 9 stayed fixed in orbit, neither expanding their presence nor retracting it. They didn't send envoys, didn't broadcast messages. But they didn't leave. Their silence wasn't absence, it was observation. A permanent gaze. Humanity had never experienced that kind of attention. Passive, yet undeniable. Cal became a symbol, whether he wanted it or not. Every action he took was documented, discussed, examined for meaning. But he never gave interviews. Refused transfers. Declined ceremonial promotions. He stayed at the outpost because nothing else made sense. He hadn't chosen to be noticed. He'd just done what he thought was right. Direct 9 transformed from a forgotten terraforming project into a galactic focal point. Research colonies expanded. Trade routes were proposed, rerouted, then classified. Military presence increased discreetly, not in aggression but caution. Humanity didn't know what would trigger a response from the Watchers above. So they tread lightly? Cal's story circulated in internal briefings and unofficial records. A foreman finds 2 alien cubs in a storm. Saves them. The next day, the sky fills with ships. No war. No demands. Just silent acknowledgement. It wasn't a story about dominance or diplomacy. It was about something simpler, an act of mercy, and the echo it created. Scientists began cataloging subtle changes across the planet. Atmospheric elements were shifting, subatomic behavior aligning with unknown energy fields. Minerals that hadn't existed before were forming in soil pockets. Quantum anomalies began appearing in isolated zones. And always, the orbital fleet remained present. Like guardians, or judges. Cultural shifts followed. On Earth and colonies alike, new philosophies took root. Educational institutions debated the ethics of intervention, the power of small decisions, the idea that empathy could alter interstellar destiny. Humanity began examining itself not through conquest, but through conscience. Cal avoided the noise. He kept his schedule, repaired equipment, monitored environmental panels. Every so often, he'd walk the outer rim of the outpost and glance up. Not out of curiosity anymore, but out of habit. The ships were always there. Never changing, never leaving. Then one morning, the sky shimmered. Not with light, but with motion. A single vessel descended again, the same model as before. It touched down without ceremony. No one approached. No one dared. Cal stood alone at the perimeter, watching as the ship's hull opened. This time, it was empty. No being stepped forward. No voice spoke. Instead, a pedestal emerged with an object resting at its center. A small crystal shard, glowing faintly with the same blue pattern as the insignia burned into Cal's file months ago. He stepped forward and lifted it. The moment his fingers touched it, warmth flooded his skin. Not heat, connection. Not in words or images, but in sensation. Gratitude. Recognition. Respect. The feeling passed in seconds, but it left something behind: certainty. He was seen, not as an anomaly, but as proof. A reminder that sentience isn't measured by logic alone. The ship retracted the pedestal and rose without sound, joining the others. This time, one vessel peeled off from the formation and disappeared into the void. A departure. Not of rejection, but fulfillment. The crystal was analyzed by every lab on Earth. It defied replication. It emitted low-band signals only when touched by Cal, as if keyed to his biosignature. The readings were inconclusive, but the message wasn't. The life-bearer had been acknowledged again. And the Watchers had marked humanity as something more than a footnote in the galaxy. Cal stored the crystal in his quarters, locked but unhidden. He didn't talk about it. He didn't speculate. He didn't need to. The outpost continued its work, now fully self-sustaining. The crew adapted to their place at the center of history. They operated with quiet purpose, like they understood they were stewards now, not just workers. Humanity didn't get a treaty or a new technology to reverse engineer. They got something else: validation. That even in the coldest part of space, compassion mattered. That a single decision, made by someone with no authority and no incentive, could shift the course of civilizations. Other colonies took note. Emergency protocols were revised to include ethical action in unknown life-form encounters. The Xenoresponse Initiative expanded, funded without limit. Not to prepare for invasion, but to be worthy of continued attention. And Cal remained where it all began. The foreman. The man who didn't hesitate. His name became a footnote in diplomatic archives, a case study in ethical doctrine, a quiet legend among frontier crews. But to the ones still watching from the stars, he was something more. He was the reason they didn't turn away.